Hello and welcome to the latest Record Celtic podcast. My name is Daniel Conn. I'm delighted to be joined by Record Sports' Michael Gannon and Fraser Wilson. Guys, how are you?
Very well, thank you, Daniel.
All good, chaps. All the more better to see you guys and your happy, cheery faces.
Absolutely. This is the highlight of the week.
Certainly, yeah. The dirty den webcams.
I think the best place for us to start, guys, is maybe Celtic Park. Obviously, it's a couple of days ago now. We're recording Tuesday, but Mick, we need to touch on it as it was such a dramatic win for Celtic and in such an emphatic nature as well.
Yeah, I'm just so relieved that I wasn't working at a game in a midweek on deadline. If it was at 10 o'clock on a Wednesday night, I think my hair had been on fire that end of the game. Around 87 minutes, looking for all intents and purposes being a goalless draw, probably been just about justified. And then hell broke loose. Obviously, with the 3 minutes to go, the kind of Palmer's cross shot effort curled into the corner. At that point, you think, well, it's done and dusted. Celtic have done it again, let go. But then Mull can rip up the script, got the score, 95th minute. So you're back to kind of thinking it's going to be a draw, and you think Mull will probably deserve something for the game from what they put into it. But then Celtic being Celtic, they got apart and get one in 97 minutes, and it's absolute bedlam. I think Brendan Rodgers after the game touched on it. So this is what Celtic does, and he's right. I mean, it's a club that's got a history of late winners and famous for it. It helps when you've got good players. That's where it comes from. It's good players and a good work ethic and a never say die attitude. Put all that together, and it's going to happen more often than not. But it turned out to be a huge victory. I mean, I can run the mill 3 points eventually, I suppose. But the ramifications are, I mean, at 86 minutes, I'm sure people are going into Ibrox for the Rangers game against Aberdeen are thinking, points getting spilled here. 87 minutes, it's not like the case. 95 minutes, then part of time, there's points getting spilled, a chance to close the gap. That goal, 97 minutes, it doesn't just have an impact for Park on Celtic. It also it sends kind of shockwaves across towards Govan, and all of a sudden, an opportunity to cut the gap has been slammed in their face. And I think it puts the pressure on Rangers in that game, and we all saw what happened. They lose the game, and the manager ended up getting sacked. So it was one of those kind of seismic afternoons, really, when it could have swayed either way. It could have changed. I mean, the whole fate of the day in the future could have changed. Sliding door moments, as you might say. So huge, yeah, absolutely huge. I mean, a goal that gets Celtic 3 points, which is nothing really, but it also sends a chain reaction of events across the city.
Mm-hmm. Because that's a fair point, Fraser. Because when it looks like Celtic are only draw, as it did for long periods, and then especially in the 95th minute, you're then looking at the prospect. Imagine Rangers would win at Ibrox, then it's down to 2 points. Nothing in it almost. You were working at Ibrox at the weekend, and you were saying there was a tangible reaction when the Motherwell goal went in.
It's got to that stage of the afternoon where everyone's on their phone refreshing, because you're right, at 0-0, Rangers fans are thinking, here we go, the gap. Here's a chance to cut the gap to 2 points from 5 to 2 or 4 to 2 when we kick off against Aberdeen. So you could see everyone's on their phones just refreshing, voting for the full-time whistle. They get the blow of Celtic scoring a late goal, deflated. But it was then, I think we're down in the gallows at Ibrox, and fans are all filtering in at stage because you're maybe half an hour for kick-off at Ibrox. And Blair Spittle comes up with that equaliser. What was it, 95th minute, was it? And I mean, the rumbles wasn't quite a roar, but the rumbles that filtering through the support waiting to go up the stairs into Ibrox was palpable. And he thought that, generally think that's it. And then it just reminded me of that Celtic win at St Johnstone, probably roughly a similar time last season, when somehow they appear to have thrown away 2 points and immediately just respond to take all three. It was incredible. It's probably the sign of champions, I would say. And there wasn't quite phones being thrown, but amongst that Rangers support, I think then you could almost sense that it was that kind of monumental gut blow that you just know this is not going to be their season. And then what transpired from there, nobody really would have guessed. 4 points becomes 7 point gap. Rangers have got no manager. They're right up against it. And to all intents and purposes, the Premiership title race almost looks over after 7 games.
Mm-hmm. And we might obviously touch upon the stuff that's happened at Ibrox over the last few days, Mick, but to stick with Celtic for a moment, it was a great result, and particularly the ramifications that come with it. But it still wasn't a great performance, and Celtic are 7 points clear. And I don't think it's unfair to say they haven't really kicked the ball yet under Brendan Rodgers. They've not really got going.
Yeah, I don't know what to say with having not kicked the ball, but I don't think they've hit top gear. And again, there were some nice passes of play at Park, but not quite coming off. I think there's still guys like Yang. He's still finding his feet. He got a run out on the flank. He kind of struggled. I mean, he's mad keen. He demands the ball and he tries to take men on, but at the moment, it's not quite coming off from. He's not there yet. He looks kind of raw. There's guys like Rio Hatate who shown moments of quality, but he's not quite at full fitness yet off his layoff. He's just building his fitness. He's not quite there. Yeah, and we know there's still guys missing defensively in terms of injuries. So Celtic are not kind of firing all cylinders as yet, but they're getting the job done. They're getting results. They're digging it out. And the thing is that there's a lot more to come from them. So I mean, they're 7 points clear. I wouldn't say not having kicked a ball. I say they're 7 points clear, having not really clicked yet. We've not seen Lewis Palmer came off the bench and he got his goal. Looked a bit more lively. I thought he struggled against Feyenoord in his appearance out there. Looked a bit sharper. I think that goal he scored, I mean, I know it's a bit of a fluke, right? But I think if you look at his YouTube clips and all that stuff, I think it's a ball he does like, and he has done it before. And it's one of those crosses that it can go all the way into the corner of the net, isn't it? You whip it across and it just needs a wee touch somewhere.
Mate, you're a goalkeeper, you might say it's a fluke, right? But I mean, that is exact. It's got an inch perfect. That's exactly the kind of delivery you want from that, because it just causes all sorts of doubts in defenders and goalkeepers' heads. That's what's happened. So I thought it was excellent.
You know yourself, Raz, a nightmare, isn't it? Because you throw yourself out to cut it out. You might, if you don't catch it, you can hit it off your own defender and it's spinning the back of net, your own goal. You can leave yourself exposed if you don't get there. It's a horrible, horrible kind of ball, and you see them sneaking all the time. These kind of goals. So they're great cross. I mean, the pace on it, whip pace. That's exactly what he's aiming for. He's aiming for that back post. If it goes in, bonus. If it's a wee touch, it's a goal anyway. So he showed signs of being positive. We still need to wait and see. Paulo Bernardo wasn't in the bench the weekend, so he's still building fitness. We're not going to see him this week, I wouldn't imagine. Nat Phillips get 30 minutes against Motherwell. Now he's going to have to last the full 90 against Lazio. I mean, he's only played 45 against Dundee. Came with a slight knock. Played against Dundee, get a wee knock in your ankle. Missed out on Holland. Played about half an hour from the bench at Park. Looked okay, but he's now going to be in against Lazio. So he's going to need to kind of dig in and get through this. He's not played an awful lot of football. I think he's not played before Dundee. I think January, I think it was. So it's a big night for him this week against Lazio. But in general, Celtic, I think they're getting by just now, but with the promise of more to come. I think that's the kind of positive for Brendan Rodgers right now. I think he knows himself they're not exactly setting the head on fire, but I think he also knows that, listen, there's better to come from his team. I mean, he's 7 points clear at this stage. 6 wins and 1 draw, having a lot of injury problems and new faces settling in and all that stuff. He'll be delighted where he is now, because he knows that there's the graph is only going one direction, it seems.
Mm-hmm. And see, just mention the goalkeepers. I thought it was only right to give a mention to Scott Bain, who came in at the weekend, obviously with Joe Hart suspended. Thought he played really well, pulled off a couple of good saves when needed, when called upon. I feel bad saying this. I thought Siegrist was maybe a wee bit of an upgrade on Bain.
That's what he is.
Well, Brendan Rodgers obviously rates Bain, but
Well, I'm no Brendan Rodgers, but I think Benji Siegrist is a better goalkeeper than Scott Bain, a safer pair of hands in the basics of goalkeeping, the important parts of goalkeeping. He's better in every department. I mean, even when Scott Bain is at the top of his game, and I thought he did make some really good saves, to be fair to him, he still had that heart and mouth moment when you just knew big Bevis Mugabe was going to beat him to that ball a couple of yards out. Why he's not put his fist through it and tried to catch it, I'll never know. Celtic got away with one there. I think it was offside anyway. I think the decision was offside anyway. And he just has one of those, at least one of those in every game for me. Benji Siegrist was a top goalkeeper at Dundee United. Joe Hart is clearly number one at Celtic, but I don't understand why Benji Siegrist isn't second choice. Whether something's going on behind the scenes, Mick probably know a lot more than me in this regards, but to me, Benji Siegrist is a good bit ahead of Scott Bain in terms of goalkeeping.
It's a strange thing, Mick, isn't it?
I don't agree. I mean, I think Scott Bain he's an international goalkeeper. He's got cap for Scotland. He's had periods when he's done really well for Celtic and elsewhere.
Did you know got an invite on that international trip to Mexico where he got his caps?
Listen, you need to get another global pandemic for me to get a call up.
I heard you got a call up first.
But to carry the jackets. No, listen, I think he's fine. I mean, I get the point. He'll be in every moment. But he's not played much. He's not getting many games in terms of, he's been all reserve leagues up the Swanee and all that stuff. He's not getting an awful lot of football. Siegrist, I don't know. I mean, there's been a few whispers about he kind of behind the scenes and not quite applying himself, or maybe being quite a little bit too comfortable in that kind of backup goalkeeper role. He got a game out in Japan pre-season, I think, and he chucked one in. Didn't look that convincing. He's not as good as Bain with the ball at his feet. Siegrist, he just isn't. And I know that Rodgers, if you're a goalkeeper for Brendan Rodgers, you need to be able to use the ball, use your feet. And that's where Bain is a guy he's gone to a few times through the years. Brendan Rodgers, I mean, he played them obviously famously at Ibrox when Craig Gordon missed out De Vries missed out, and he stayed in the team the rest of that season. Played in 2 cup finals, did really well. He'd also had spells in the team the following season as well. So he's never really let Celtic down. Listen, I get it. He's not as good as Joe Hart, but Joe Hart's, I mean, people slag off Joe Hart. I mean, 75 caps for England. He's a great start to the season. All right, the goal in Feyenoord, I think the wall didn't help him. It was his feet the quickest across. Maybe not. But he's had big saves this year in games that have been tight. You look at Ibrox, big performance, strong, dominant in the box, a couple of big saves. The game at Livingston, he gets his red card. I thought he was a bit unlucky. I mean, the pitch is really down in. The ball's bounced and it's just killed stone dead. Giving the striker a chance to kind of get through and put his foot through it, and he's exposed. And I think the centre half's weren't too clever at that point either. So I wouldn't be flogging him for that one. So yeah, Scott. I mean, I think Scott is fine. I still think Celtic should soon go and get itself a quality keeper to compete. So I don't think Scott Bain and Siegrist are going to be competing for number one. So they do need that's an area that need to be looked at. I mean, Joe Hart is fine. I mean, he's 36, so and he's got a contract in the season. You got to think they need to start looking now, maybe January even. But in the short term, I don't think it's a big issue. I mean, I think Scott Bain's fine. He's got the mentality to cope with that role. You can cope with Ibrox in your debut. You can cope with anything, can't you?
And see, just to finish up on the game of the weekend, guys, Matt O'Reilly obviously got the winning goal in dramatic fashion. There was news last week, or was it start last week, that he's set to sign a new bumper contract.
Saturday morning, signed it in the morning, scored in the afternoon.
I mean, that is a brilliant bit of business for Celtic. And he's always been a quality player, but he's slowly developing into maybe Celtic's most important player at the minute. Is that fair?
I think he's top class. That Celtic midfield mixes him more than me. Might not be firing right now, but you won't get much better than McGregor, Hatate, O'Reilly. When those three are in top form, that is a top class midfield. Matt O'Reilly's legs, energy to get forward, goal threat, presence, everything about him. I think he was a magnificent signing for the money they shelled out. And I think on the back of Hatate and other new deals that have been handed out, I think that was just another great piece of business by Celtic, getting them tied down. And maybe more to follow. I believe Cameron Carter-Vickers one of the next that they're hoping to get tied down. Is that right, Mick?
Greg Taylor as well, I think.
Greg Taylor, yeah.
Yeah, they're all on the list. It's a good bit of business, isn't it? Getting O'Reilly tied down. O'Reilly, I think, is an exciting one for Celtic. I think it was mentioned at the weekend, and it's quite fitting this week. When you mentioned, Rodgers said it was a bit like Tom Rogic's last-minute goals for Celtic at Motherwell. I think O'Reilly could be the heir to the Rogic throne at Celtic. Obviously, Rogic this week announced his retirement from football at 30 to concentrate on his family. But you look at the ability that O'Reilly's got with the ball at his feet. Listen, Rogic was a magician, wasn't he? I mean, he could make things happen. But I think O'Reilly has got the potential to do that too. He's only 22. I think Brendan Rodgers sees him as his next big project player. I think he has thrown a lot of time and effort into developing O'Reilly. And O'Reilly, speaking to him, he's loving it. I mean, listen, I know there's a bit made of it in the summer about the kind of slightly kind of barbed comments towards Ange Postecoglou from O'Reilly. He's a very honest guy. I don't think it was a slight on the former boss. I think he just likes the style that Rodgers brings to the management as opposed to the manager previously. I think he found Big Ange's kind of standoffish kind of stance a wee bit kind of not to his liking, whereas Rodgers is hands-on. He's working with him really closely, and I think he's lapping it up. And I think you're seeing it on the pitch as well. Listen, he's been quality since he signed. I mean, from the minute he came into Parkhead, he's been brilliant. Matt O'Reilly. Last season, maybe a wee slight dip. I mean, listen, he covered for Callum McGregor for 3 or 4 months when he was injured, a deeper role. And then when McGregor came back, Aaron Moy had taken his position further up the pitch, and he kind of stayed there, didn't he, up until towards the end of the season. So he kind of lost his position a wee bit for a while. We look at him this season, he's come back. I mean, he's already scored 5 goals this season. He scored 4 of all last season. He scored 5 already this season. We're only in the start of October. So he's added goals to his game. He's bringing that bit of magic. And I think that the manager loves him. He's enjoying the relationship with his gaffer. And I think the sky's the limit for him. I think he is the guy who's going to be the main man for the next short to medium term. And longer term, he's going to make Celtic an absolute fortune. That's what I can see, because he's got that kind of Rogic style of it looks a bit languid at times, but great feet, quick feet, vision, and now he's adding goals. I think he will be a major player for Celtic and a major asset going forward.
Can he make a bolt of lightning come out the sky when he scores a last-minute Scottish Cup final winner, though, Mick?
That's the challenge for him, isn't it? That was you've seen a few clips recently with Rogic retiring, but that's what Rogic could do. That Rogic could pull out magic, couldn't he?
It's so early. They go early, these Aussies, on the back. What's Aaron Moy, 32, when he hung up the boots in the summer, and then Tom Rogic at 30. It's a shame, you feel like I'd like to think he'd have another 4 or 5 years left in his legs, but
see, Tom Rogic is one of the most enigmatic players I think I've ever dealt with in this game. Almost like a reluctant footballer. I always think Rogic, he seemed to be kind of it wasn't really for him. Same about Aaron Moy was similar as well. It was always like it was in spite of things. But listen, he mentioned that it's a personal thing with his family and all that stuff. He wants to concentrate on that, and fair play to him. Listen, we'd all like to have that luxury. We just pack in our work and look after the family. Maybe I'd pack it and maybe go play golf, to be honest with you. but it's a shame. Only 30 years old as well. I must admit. I thought Rogic should have did. I thought he'd be one of these guys like kind of playing. He's like 35, 36, strolling about with that wonderful left peg. He never relied on his pace, obviously. Rogic. But you look at, looking back to Matt O'Reilly, look at he's got the engine. I mean, Rogic, that was always the thing he didn't have. He didn't have an engine. Yeah. I mean, you get an hour out of Tom Rogic, and that'd be you. The irony of scoring a last-minute goal in the cup final, because I was majorly surprised to still see him there on the pitch at that point in time. Because most games they started, never saw the final whistle. It just never happened. I mean, I think he finished about 4 games for Celtic in 10 years. But you look at O'Reilly, he has got that engine and the fitness, and he's clearly got a manager who's going to try and polish him into something special. But so he could be, maybe not quite. I say Rogic was something special, wasn't he? But he might not be far off.
Mick, you mentioned that O'Reilly, it looks like he could make Celtic an absolute fortune when if and when sad fact of life, he does move on. I know what Mick's going to say to this, Fraser, so I'll put it to you, right?
No,
because I said something similar during the summer, and your eyes
You're
told
so
us that.
predictable, Mick.
No,
I mean, I've got to say the opposite. What is it?
This sounds like a challenge to me here, Fraz.
no, basically, we, according to reports, Leeds United, we're in for O'Reilly at the back end of the transfer window. There's a rumoured amount of 10 million. See if and when clubs come from in January or next summer, the money is that mental now. The money is that obscene, particularly in England. If I was Celtic, I would plenty of that. I get that 25 million's the record. I would honestly start at like 30 million. Because I know it sounds mad saying that, but the money's just so obscene now. 30 million's nothing to these clubs.
It's so difficult now, isn't it? To put a price in different markets. What league are they playing in? Thankfully, the answer to that question is always is only worth what somebody's willing to pay. If you're going comparatively, who's the last big money player to leave Scottish football?
Jota, 25 million.
It's hard to.
Calvin Bassey, 20 odd million. Tierney, 25.
Yeah, but is it
Edouard.
really going to go to Saudi Arabia where it's just ridiculous, stupid monopoly money?
You're looking at your likes of your Chris Ayers and all that stuff. What 14, 15 million. Edouard, 18 million.
I totally agree with you, Mick. He's a special player. I would expect him to be worth 12, 15 million, certainly. I would be looking for upwards of 10 million, considering he's under contract for another 4 years or whatever. If that answers your question. But it is only whatever somebody's willing to pay. I could see him as a Premier League player, though. He's got everything.
Aye, he's a cracking player. I mentioned...
Ask Mick.
Well, Mick, I mean, do you think that's outlandish saying, look, start at 30 million? And again, I'm coming from the point of view, I mean, looked at Chelsea last night. £1 billion team. I mean, £1 billion has been spent in that team, and they're 3-4 players short. I just think 30 million to these clubs, I think most, if they really want them, they pay it.
Well, listen, the key is perform well in the Champions League, get yourself in that Denmark international team, become a fixture in the Denmark team. Because if he's performing for Celtic in Europe and to his national side, then yes, you can start thinking then upwards of 20 million quid. Until then, it's a bit of a struggle to talk about that kind of money. But
that's fair, aye.
Yeah. So if he gets into that Danish side and gets 7, 8, 9, 10 caps in the next kind of 18 months, and he's had a couple of great performances in the Champions League, then yeah, stick a zero whenever we want. I mean, I still think Celtic will make good money on him. I mean, he signed for 1.5 million.
That's mad.
They'll make at least 10 times that.
Aye.
That's what I'm saying.
That's the model in action.
Hold on, what's that? What's 10 times that? Check my calculator. I'm not great at maths. Before I start throwing your figures around.
12 million.
Yeah. at least that. They get that just now. So yeah.
Agreed.
I think you can start talking about 20 million quid and all that stuff if he starts getting capped and doing the business in Champions League.
Well, speaking of the Champions League, Celtic are back in action this week. As I say, we're recording on Tuesday. First home game of the campaign against Lazio. Obviously, there's no easy games. I'm not for a minute saying it's going to be easy, but is it perhaps a decent time to be playing Lazio? They seem to be in a little bit of flux. Only 2 of their opening 7 games in Serie A. I think Maurizio Sarri is under a bit of pressure. I mean, do you think that'll count for anything, Mick? Or?
Yeah, they're not coming here firing all cylinders. I mean, 2 wins in 8 games, all competitions. Lost to Milan at the weekend. You get the manager complaining about the transfers in the summer. The owner telling the manager to sit down and shut up. Yeah, it looks like a kind of unhappy camp. They've got a few injury concerns. I mean, they're not looking like they're particularly strong, but they're still a big hitting Serie A side. And they beat Napoli away from home this season. So they're clearly, definitely no mugs, that's for sure. They'll get plenty of players that can cause damage. So it's a dangerous one for Celtic. Again, I think they're fortunate in that Celtic are not playing a team that are going to win the Champions League here. I mean, you look at the top seeds in the group. Feyenoord, pot 1, never going to win the Champions League this year. Not a chance. Good side, but not going to win the Champions League. Lazio, not going to win the Champions League. That's not, even they won't think that they're going to win it. Atletico probably hang about to the later stages as they always do. Are they going to win it? Without it. So it's tough, but it should be the kind of game where Celtic, I think, this is an opportunity to get some points. I'm not saying that they should expect to get points against Lazio at home, because it's not. This is not 2004 when Celtic are probably one of the top 6 teams in Britain in terms of ability and wages and all the rest of it. This is Scotland in 2023. You're playing as a team that are a proper Serie A European side, so it's going to be tough. Celtic have got problems at the back, which I just can't see beyond. I think they've caused Lazio problems. I think that the attack can give them grief. I still think they're lacking in the kind of wide areas in terms of, look at Jota leaving. But I think Kyogo made us work rate and all that stuff. And I think O'Reilly and Hatate coming from middle part, I think they will cause problems and create chances. I just worry about the back. I mentioned Phillips, not a lot of football being played. Liam Scales, I think, has been terrific since he came in. Another decent game on Saturday, although the goal, a wee bit of a wonder at the Motherwell goal. But he's been terrific. Listen, a guy who's maybe not expected to play that many games at this level. He stepped in and done a good job. Listen, that's just where the fear is. Can Celtic keep a clean sheet? That's the big question. Mm-hmm. I don't see how they do, which means they're going to need to score 2 or 3. Can they score 2 or 3? Yes, that's what makes it interesting. If this is a basketball match and it goes 2-1, 3-2, I can see that happening as well. So it's opportunity, but it could be a wild night.
And Fraser, I think Kyogo will finally get his first Champions League goal tomorrow night. But do you hold out much hope for Celtic?
I do, because going back to the original point, I think this, if you're going to meet Lazio, this is the time to do it. And with Mick, definitely there's going to be goals at both ends. I think Lazio are struggling to keep clean sheets as well. Mm-hmm. But we bit like Scotland in their Euro qualifying group. If you're going to grab one of the top 2 spots, you need to take out a big gun. And Lazio right now, perhaps the biggest gun in that group, I don't know. But this is the time to do it, because they look like they're under a bit of pressure, and the manager certainly sounds like he's under a bit of pressure, blaming everybody. Seems like a man that's kind of smashed 100 mirrors and walked under a ladder. But if he's complaining about injuries in the fixture list, then Celtic have got it just as bad. So, no, it's game on. Celtic's big players turn up on the night, then hopefully they'll end that 10-year wait for a home win in the Champions League, if I'm not wrong in saying.
I think it was Ajax in 2013 now, which is a mad stat.
But what's the other even madder stat that the online team have come up with this morning? This match day 2, Celtic match day 2. If the game was match day 2, they'd be flying in the Champions League.
They've only lost 3 of 11 match day 2 fixtures, which is really impressive. And in that includes 1-0 win over Porto, 2-0 over Lyon, 1-0 over Copenhagen, 2-1 against AC Milan, 3-2 against Spartak Moscow, 3-0 against Anderlecht, 3-3 with Man City. So, I mean, I know it won't count for much tomorrow night.
Or anything.
It's not counted for anything in the last 13 years or whatever, is it? But 11 years since they last qualified. But still, nice start.
Celtic need to get some of these stats away off their. I mean, we've seen it after the last game. They're saying, one of the teammates played 50 games in Europe, the lowest win percentage. All this nonsense, right? Celtic's record in the Champions League is pretty abysmal for a long time. They need to address that. It needs to be, at some point, they need to pull off a biggie. And this would be a big one. But again, if they had a full team out, if they had Cameron Carter-Vickers in there, maybe in Rocky alongside of him, a fully fit and firing Hatate, that would provide more confidence, I think, for this kind of game. But at the moment, the way it's going defensively, I think they've got. It's just likewise happened in Holland, didn't it? They played quite well, but they were just undone by wee moments of indiscipline and this organisation. It cost them. They're going to need to be on it for 90 minutes plus in this game. And if they are, I mean, it might be. I mean, we saw Celtic beating Lazio a couple of years ago in the Europa League. I think Lazio were maybe even stronger at that point.
Yeah.
Celtic definitely were as well. They had to ride it at times, ride it out, and then they caught them twice with last minute goals in Glasgow and in Rome. I mean, incredible results really, home and away, beating Lazio home and away. So they showed it can be done. The worry is that some of those guys are still there from Lazio, they might remember it. That's maybe going to fire them up a wee bit as well. But remember that night at Parkhead, I mean, Fraser had a couple of, absolutely unbelievable saves. He had one in particular, I think, was absolutely sensational from a volley. Remember the save he made from the volley?
I remember the noise it made. It was mad.
Oh, when they took your arm off that volley.
Brilliant. What was the nickname that came up with him after that? The Gran Muralla or something?
Well, that not the Barcelona. That was in Barcelona. They called him the Great Wall.
That bit out. No, there was another nickname after that one, but I just said that bit out.
The big Jamie so-and-so or something like that. But Celtic are going to need something like that again. They're going to need the defence to be heroic, the goalkeeper to pull off some saves, and then take the chances when they come at the other end.
Aye. The big players stood up in those two games, and that's exactly what needs to happen. And as Mick says, the fine margins, the small details that turn into really important details you have to get right. Starting with keeping 11 men on the park. But no, I do fancy them. I fancy them maybe a 2-1 or a 3-2 to get this Champions League group off and running.
2-1 Celtic. Hugo for scorer. There you go, 50p in that. I don't know what odds it is, but it's got to be worth 50p. I think best to finish this week, guys. Just a couple of minutes on the goings on across Glasgow. I know this isn't the Rangers podcast, obviously, but I think looking at it from a Celtic point of view, Michael Beale's doomed spell at Rangers. I mean, Mick, it kind of, to me, the thing I took from it was Celtic went out and got a proven manager, and they had to pay well for a proven manager in Rodgers. But it just shows you get what you pay for. You know, Michael Beale, I think he managed 19 games before he came to Rangers, and ultimately, it's kind of shown.
Well, we've all been kind of writing about and talking about the Celtic's need for a marquee signing in the summer. It turns out they did get a marquee signing in the summer, and it was the manager. I mean, they got a box office manager with nearly 700 games under his belt as a manager. He's only 50 years old. He's nearly 700 games. In contrast across the city, the Michael Beale had 22 as a manager. It's almost not a fair fight, really. So I'm not that surprised. And listen, we know how Glasgow works. You very rarely, or if ever, have both sides going through quite a nice time at the same time. Usually, it's if one is doing well, the other one is feeling the brunt of it, and that's just the nature of the beast in this city. If one's up, the other's down. That's the yin and yang of Old Firm life. So with Celtic getting results, albeit not particularly impressively yet, but getting results, going to Ibrox and winning with a kind of makeshift defence, pulling out results like that one at the weekend. Every time they do things like that, it puts pressure on the other side. And unfortunately, when you get an inexperienced manager and the pressure getting turned up on him from within and from external sources, i.e. Celtic, it's a horrible combination to deal with. And I'm not surprised that eventually it's been that the Rangers managers end up with the pants and the head with the pencil up the nose. Unfortunately, that sends. Listen, we've seen it sending experienced managers round the bend in this city. So it was incredibly difficult for him to deal with. But Celtic have compounded his problems by getting results when they're not been playing that well. Winning at Ibrox was a big one, because I think Rangers saw that as an opportunity to really put down a marker and get a better Celtic team that hadn't started that great, had injury problems, obviously. The new signings hadn't really come in and done that well. So that was a big... The door was open for Rangers at that game, and they didn't get the job done. So after that point, I think he was in big bother. Because you can't lose Old Firm games. I mean, he lost 3 out of 4 last season?
He won only 1 of 6.
1 of 6. No manager in Glasgow survives that record. You have to get the better of your nearest and dearest in this city, and he didn't do that. So once he lost that game at Ibrox, I think the writing was on the wall. European exit, obviously, that seriously damaging the manner of it. and then domestically slipping up, it's been fatal. So I'm not surprised that if one team is shown a flexing and been dominant, the other one's going to suffer, and that means the manager pays the price.
Could you really? Was it palpable at Ibrox on at the weekend, Fraser? I mean,
toxic.
You could feel what was coming.
Yeah, it's toxic. I mean, for the moment, Rangers actually had 4 good chances to go ahead, and then Aberdeen did streak ahead in the 30th minute with a first effort and goal. And for that moment onwards, I mean, actually the half-time booing was way beyond what came at full-time because half the ground had emptied. But those that had been at the Old Firm game a month ago said Saturday was even more toxic, even more brutal towards Beale than after the Celtic game, and that's saying something. And then afterwards, I mean, it was about an hour before Michael Beale came in to speak to the media, the press afterwards, and then you're thinking, something's not right here. And he was a broken man, you could tell. He knew what was inevitable. And it's all Rangers' own doing. It's all Michael Beale's own doing over the last few weeks, because it comes down to his signings, and they've been pretty woeful. Don't put too strong a word on it. They've just not delivered. And the gulf between them and the champion Celtic seems to be bigger than it has been for a good few years. So if Rangers are looking for a new manager bounce, I think it's going to take a trampoline to kind of get to cut that gap. And that's all Celtic can do now is not pay any attention to it whatsoever, not let complacency creep in. The worst thing they could do is keep their eye on what's going on across the city. They just need to keep foraging ahead. As Michael says, there's only an upward trajectory with Celtic right now, and when the big players start hitting form, then the league will take care of itself.
Absolutely.
Yes, this is the problem that Rangers are going to have. I mean, people are talking about recruitment now. They need to recruit a manager. They need to recruit a manager that's going to be able to take on Brendan Rodgers, and that's not going to be easy. That's what I'm saying. This is a guy with over 500 games managed in the English Premier League. Do you know what I mean? It's a serious operator who knows what he's doing. I mean, there's no panic. Very rarely any panic with Brendan Rodgers. Even though his team haven't played particularly well, even if they lose, he doesn't panic. Seen it all before.
He also inherited a right good squad of players, Mick, which this next Rangers manager, oh dear. I mean,
well,
put a lot of managers off.
This is the problem. I mean, the signings didn't look particularly great in the summer. So the new guy coming in has got to get a tune out these guys and keep them. I mean, listen, it's only October. There's still the League Cup's there to be won. The league is still very much alive. I mean, Rangers last year, I thought it was weird how Rangers kind of wrote last season off when Van Bronckhorst left. It was almost kind of given to Michael Beale with a kind of proviso, just get to the summer and you can do your rebuild and we'll start again. There's still competitions to be won last year, and I'm not saying they wrote it off, but it wasn't far off it. They can't do that again in October. I mean, it's a long way to go. Celtic are not. They're not up to speed as yet. You got to think they're going to get better, but you think they try and get somebody in that can actually make a fist of it. I mean, if the competitions are there to win still. And then do they bring in or hold fire to the summer? Then they have another rebuild in the summer. I mean, it's the Rangers are tapping on a difficult cycle just now. Celtic, I think, should be in a position to capitalise. I still think Celtic, for all they're dominating just now and they're ahead in the league, I still think they missed a chance in the summer to go and really tool up for Europe. I think they've left themselves short. So they can look across the city and think, oh, it's all easy, and they can stay one step ahead of Rangers with the bare minimum. I think they took the eye off the ball in Europe. I see it in this podcast every week. I still think they've sold themselves short in terms of Champions League. So I don't think Celtic. Listen, we're fell into the trap. We're talking about Rangers here. Celtic should forget about Rangers and concentrate on themselves and make themselves better on a European stage. We'll find out this week again where they are this campaign. But Celtic can't afford another summer like last summer. The 9 signings, none of them have really threatened to look like first-team regulars as yet. They need to concentrate on putting the foot down at home and get themselves ready for Europe, either this year or beyond. They need to look beyond just being a bit better than Rangers.
I think that's the perfect note to end on, guys. Thank you very much if you're listening at home for tuning into the Record Celtic podcast. Mick, Fraser, it's always a pleasure.
I'm glad to hear it. Cheers.
No worries, guys.
And we'll be back next week. Cheers, guys.